share an acronym with you that will help you understand how to get unstuck a lot sooner than later. I want to share a three-part acronym that will absolutely help you understand what's keeping you stuck, why it's so hard for you to move forward, what's getting in your way, and how you can move forward in your life. And so, those of you who follow this channel, most of the time you come here because you've been abused by a narcissistic mother, you have a narcissistic father, you grew up with explosive, controlling, manipulative, guilt provoking mothers and fathers, people who did not see you, and people who were more interested in their pain than your own pain. So in their self-absorption, they could not see that you had pain. And so you grew up in this type of a situation, and oftentimes you don't recognize the consequences that happen at the subconscious mind. And in order for us to heal, in order for us to break through, then we've got to stop, we've got to look, and we've got to listen. I learned that in my first aid days when I drove the ambulance corps, when I was a part of a volunteer ambulance corps. It was like stop, look, listen, and feel. And it's so important that we recognize how the hardware works, how the human mind works. If you come from a home that was wrought with trauma, then your mind works differently than somebody's mind who did not come from such a home. Your brain works differently. Maybe it was hard for you to learn. Maybe it was hard for you to pay attention. Maybe your focus got hijacked early. I had a lunch with my son yesterday, it broke my heart. And he said, Mom, I was a little boy and all I wanted to do was jump into daddy's skin and get him to say what I wanted him to say, to like fix it between you and him. And I thought, oh, my poor kid, he took on this role of saving me. And it's followed him, and it's something that he's trying to work through today. And that should never have happened. But my son's brain works a certain way today, and that's not his fault. And even though I thought I was this aware mom, I was not as aware as I thought I was. And so this kid, he's 36 years old now, he's not a kid, he's a man, struggles to this day because he was so young when that psychological and subconscious impression was created. He was so young. And it made him feel powerless that his dad, he didn't know his dad was a vulnerable narcissist. He didn't know. He didn't know that his mom was codependent. He didn't know his mom was insecure. He didn't know what was going on. He just saw, wow, my mom's frustrated and my dad is like stonewalling. He didn't have that language, but he knew like he's not participating here. So my son jumped in and like, oh, if I could get in there, and if I could get in there, and if I could, be able to say what I think my dad should say, then I would feel safe. So that's a form of complex trauma, and you have to be aware of how your parenting affected your children to get to the other side of it. That's why there is no healing without humility. There just isn't. If I have an addiction, if I have an alcohol addiction, if I have an eating addiction, whatever it is, gambling addiction, shopping addiction, right? If I wasn't able to see it, then I'm not going to be able to transcend it, because you can't transcend pain that you don't acknowledge, right? So it's important that, we understand that, and understand that this is the way that we can move forward, by understanding what went wrong. It's so important that we stop, we look, we listen, we feel for what went wrong. That's the first part of the awakening journey. And I hope that you're here for that reason. So I don't know if you guys know this, but I also host a private membership. And every first of the month, it is May 1st, every first of the month, we offer a new mini course. And this month, the mini course is about authenticity. And so I've been working on this mini course about authenticity. And I wanted to share a little bit about what I think can help anybody out there, whether you come from a narcissistic home or a codependent home, or you come from a place where there's emotional abandonment and you were conditioned right out of your authenticity. We now know that complex trauma is tied to inauthenticity, which means it's tied to having to abandon myself and my inner reality for the sake of an external reality, because my internal reality didn't match my external reality, meaning I was a little girl, I was a little boy, everyone acts perfect. Like, daddy's not drunk, pass the butter. Like, daddy's not drunk, like, he's just playing around. That's why he's sleeping on the floor. Or he just worked late. Like, daddy's not drunk. Or mommy's not really ripping you apart and gaslighting you. She just had a bad day. Mommy's not really triangulating you against your siblings. Like, she's just blowing off steam. So when we have these experiences as children and our parents aren't doing the best job, and the younger we feel, so your age matters, the more powerless you felt when you were younger, the more traumatic this experience is going to be. And so if I felt terrorized as a little girl or terrorized as a little boy because this experience was so traumatizing for me, then what I'll do is I will abandon myself. I will fantasize about being rescued. I will make one of my parents the good guy and one of my parents the bad guy. And I'm escaping my emotions. I'm escaping my inner anxieties, but I don't know that I'm doing it. And so escaping becomes part of my coping strategy. It's called denial. And so in denial, I can't heal shit. In denial, I can't heal anything. But how do you fix a hole in the wall that you can't see? That's why with the 12-week Break the Coaching program, the first 4 weeks, we are going into your timeline. We're going into your childhood. We're going into how you felt and your experiences from the eye in the sky. We have to figure it out so that the left side of your brain understands the right side of the brain. And when we put you in a healing, safe environment, then what happens is that your corpus callosum starts to heal. And as your corpus callosum starts to heal, then the right side of the brain communicates with the left side of the brain. And now you're able to function from the prefrontal lobe. Trauma makes you function from the limbic system, which is Amy and Harry, Amy the amygdala and Harry the hippocampus. And they're just frightened little children. They're insecure. They feel inadequate. They know what they should be doing to make themselves feel better, but they don't do it. They have a fear of failure. They're paralyzed by fear. And so they sit on the couch inside the limbic system and life passes them by. And that's a lot of us. And Amy, I look at Amy and Harry as cousins. And so here's my inner child trying to escape, trying to escape, trying to escape. But Amy and Harry keep telling me that I have to stay back. I can't get off. I can't get off the couch. Stay here, Lisa. Don't grow. Don't go out the doors. It's scary. It's isolation. And it's a cage. It's not isolation. It's a cage. It's a jail. It's a freaking mental jail. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to understand what went wrong. We're trying to understand how our parents' narcissism affected us and how it keeps us frozen, how it keeps us in fawning stage, how it keeps us dissociating, escaping, how it keeps us in isolation, how it keeps us trying to seek the safety of being alone versus being able to develop a stainless steel spine and being able to stand toe to toe with our own fears first, right? So what we learned to do in the 12-week class, 8-week class in solo school is that I teach my students how to stand and face their fear until the fear starts to dissolve. So you can't, this is a thing, thank you, Einstein, you can't solve trauma from the same level of awareness that you were in when the trauma was caused. Now, Einstein didn't say it that way. I say it that way. Einstein says you can't solve a problem from the same level of intelligence that created the problem. That's why narcissists are stuck, because they're creating problems in their lives and in their marriages and in their relationships. And they try to solve the problem from the same level of narcissism that created the problem. You can't get there from there. You have to come at a problem from a higher state of consciousness. That's why codependents have a chance, a narcissist does not. Because a codependent is willing to say, wait a minute, where is all this pain coming from? And how do I get to the next stage? And so narcissists don't. A narcissistic mother causes chaos in your life unnecessarily, freaking drama wherever she is, right? And then when you speak to her, you're speaking to her from a higher state of consciousness. Even if you understand her pain, she's speaking to you from the level of consciousness that created the drama. You're not going to be able to fix it with a narcissistic mother. You're just not. And so you have a narcissistic brother, a narcissistic sister, a narcissistic friend, narcissistic spouse. You have to recognize, this person is coming at this negotiation from the same level of awareness that created the problem in the first place. So narcissists often project their wounds onto you, or they project their character flaws onto you. If that narcissist believes that and you try to shift them, you're never going to be able to shift them. And once you show your cards, what they'll do is that they'll rearrange their language to make it seem like their perception of you has shifted, but it really hasn't shifted. That's why you'll feel that in a narcissistic relationship, nothing ever changes. It's like effing Groundhog's Day. You say the same things over and over and over and over and over. And you have hope and you have hope and you try. You can see the goodness in this person. And you have empathy and compassion. And you even forgive them, right? So in that situation, what we have to do is we have to recognize that how we feel, it's not changing. It's not changing. When that hit me in my head, like with my ex-husband, like it's 12 years of me saying the same things over and over and over and over. Nothing changes. And at that point, after 12 years and 3 kids, my body was failing and I had nothing left to give. But when I peel back and I think about what I was doing, was I was giving up my authenticity for the sake of an illusion. I'm going to pretend that we're happier than we actually are. I'm going to forsake how I really feel. I was so afraid of feeling what I felt because I had the ability to see ahead and know if I connect to this, I'm out of here. I'm out of here, right? And so that's what kept me unfortunately stuck for so long, because it was, if I really accept how I feel about my husband, my ex-husband, if I really accept how I feel about going around in circles all the time, what am I going to do then? It's like my therapist said once, it's like toothpaste that comes out of the tube. You can't get it back in again. But what it really came down to was I was not being authentic with myself. So I learned to abandon myself as a little girl, and I was still abandoning myself, expecting a different result. And that is the definition of insanity. So twisting myself into a pretzel didn't work for my mother. Hiding my true self didn't work when I was a kid. I got bullied. I got bullied at home. I got bullied by kids at school. So what made me think that it was going to work in my marriage? Well, this is the thing. When you're codependent, you're below the veil. You're not thinking, you're reacting. You have beliefs that have been downloaded. You don't know how to think. You don't know how to think. You think unconsciously, albeit, that because you have thoughts in your head and you speak, you're thinking, right? You're not. You are recycling the same thoughts from childhood, just through a little bit more of a sophisticated ChatGPT system, but nothing's changed. And so what we have to do is we have to learn to rise above it in consciousness. It's like a ladder within the mind. And we have to observe what's happening. We have to understand why it's happening. And then what we have to do is we have to teach ourselves how to stay in the seat of the compassionate observer of what has been. That is us coming out of denial. So the acronym is DAMN. Don't you love it? DAMN. So the first one is denial. So you cannot heal what you're unwilling to face. Denial forces you to abandon your emotional truth in favor of survival, leading you to suppress the parts of you that feel too painful. Hold on one second. That are leading you to suppress parts of you that feel too painful or shameful to bring into the light. I'm fine becomes the lie we live to avoid the truth we fear. So I'm fine. How are you feeling? I'm fine. How's everything going? I'm fine. It's not fine. But you don't even know how to look within and say, well, how do I really feel? You're so used to pacifying other people. You're so used to not paying attention to how you feel. You're so used to looking outside of you and being hyper vigilant and hyper focused on the moods of other people and adjusting yourself that you don't even know that you're being inauthentic. You don't even know. So how do you fix being inauthentic if you don't know that you're being authentic? You can't. You can't. You have to be first aware that, oh my God, I'm being disingenuous. Like, I'm not freaking fine. Okay, no problem. Let's start there. Let's start there. If you were in my office, I'd be saying, okay, that's great. At least now you're freaking telling the truth. That's authentic. But this is what people do. They feel, oftentimes they start to feel, and then what ends up happening is that they're in conscious contact with how they feel, and this makes them feel uncomfortable, and so they bail. They bail. So the goal is for us to embrace this human revolution, which is a revolution of consciousness. We've got to stop being reactive slugs. We're not dogs. We're not canines. We're not felines. We're sophisticated human beings. And we have to stop living in reactivity to every emotion and every feeling and every person. We have to stop living in reactivity. And if we can stop living in reactivity, and we can see our triggers as our teachers, and we can observe them, and pain becomes an activation, pain becomes a wake-up call, all of a sudden the space of awareness is born. And so now I'm not afraid of a trigger. I'm curious about a trigger. Curious, curious, curious. I'm observing about, why does that bother me? Why do I keep complaining about the same freaking things and nothing changes? I become curious because the answers are in my triggers. The answers are in the pain. I love the expression that flowers don't grow in thunder, they grow in the rain. So in other words, what that means, there are just a couple of very silly narc trolls that we have to get rid of. How sad, but it is what it is. What are you going to do? Roll with it, roll with it. So we're trying to elevate our consciousness around the pain. We're trying to embrace the pain that we have and understand that we can be curious about pain versus reactive to pain versus layering pain. I hear it in my own family. I used to say it to myself, I'm so sad, then I'd be pissed off that I was sad. Like, what good is that? Authenticity is, I'm just sad. I'm not in denial that I'm sad. Or my mother chewed me out today and it was completely unwarranted. And she said some really passive aggressive crap, in front of my family, and no one stood up for me. They just let my mom get away with it. And that feels crappy. That feels really, really crappy. It feels like I've been betrayed. It feels like I've been singled out. It makes me feel unloved. It makes me feel inadequate, or it makes me feel like she thinks I'm inadequate for her love and her respect. Ugh, it just feels icky. So it's authentic for me to be able to say that. But as a child, if I've been conditioned to like avoid feeling that, because if I feel that and I say it, my mother's going to be worse to me. So unhealthy parents condition you to fear their reaction. Codependents fear disapproval. I want to help move you past the fear of disapproval so you can finally accept how you freaking feel. And if you can accept how you freaking feel in that space, and we help you hover there for a little bit, then you're in touch with your feelings, and then you're able to make decisions from this higher authority, from the prefrontal lobe and the neocortex, versus Amy, the amygdala, no, I don't want anybody to be mad at me. I want to teach you how to be able to put up with anybody, not put up, but stand there in the face of anybody's BS and say, no, this isn't enough for me. This is what I want, without you crumbling under the fear of what that other person thinks about you. That's what I want for you. I want you to be that mentally tough, because those of us who come from dysfunctional homes, we're not that mentally tough. We're not. We crumble. We fear disapproval. We think we're here to save everybody. No, we're freaking not. No, we're freaking not. And you know what? If you've been hanging on to people that aren't as interested in how you feel, or they're not as interested in your relationship as you are in them, it's time to let them go. That's how you elevate yourself. That's how you tell the universe, I don't want this anymore. I'd like something else, please. But if you keep tolerating the same crap and the same crap and the same crap, right? What you don't realize that the same crap shows up, and then you throw your hands up and you say, oh, it's the universe's fault. No, it's not, because the universe can only respond to our vibration, and that words are a pretext. So vibrations come first, and those are energy, and emotions are energy in motion. So that's why it's so important that we learn to process our emotions, and we do that by confronting inauthenticity. Codependency is the opposite of authenticity. Codependency is me trying to figure out who you need me to be so you don't leave me. That is disingenuous. It is not authentic. And so I want to leave you with the acronym DAMN. The first letter is D, it's denial. The second one is approval addiction. It's when your worth is externally sourced. You will sacrifice your voice and your needs and your truth just to feel accepted. You become a chameleon shaped by what others want instead of who you truly are. You can't stay whole while outsourcing your sense of self. So in other words, it's like we play this game as codependents. I'm going to be everything you want me to be at the sacrifice of myself. You think that your body and your mind can do that forever? No, eventually your body will fail. That's how my mother died. And I was on that path until I saw what this path was doing to my children. And I said, I'm going to walk through fire if I have to break these cycles. And that's what I've done. And that's what I still do. Obviously, I'm here, right? So hold on one second. So the M is masking. You've worn masks for so long. Perfectionistic, you're caretakers, you're the tough one, you're the peacemaker, that you forgot who you are underneath all the masks. And you can also have the mask of toughness. In other words, like, I don't need anybody, or the fight mask, where it's everybody sucks. Like, it's a defense. It's an ego defense mechanism. So if you think about the 4 F's of trauma, or fight, flight, fawn, fight, and freeze. So these are masks. So when I'm fawning, I've got the codependent mask. When I'm fighting and I'm finding all of the inadequacies in you and I'm pushing you away and I'm focusing on people that try to hurt me, that's a mask. That's me. I'm protecting myself. I'm pushing people away. It's too hard for me to go into the self and get in touch with that lonely place, right? I love what Rumi says, close your eyes and fall in love. Oh my God, do you freaking love that? I love that. Close your eyes and fall in love. That's the only acceptance that you need. And so the acronym is DAMN: denial, approval, addiction, and masking. And so the mask is going to keep you safe, but it's also going to cut you off from your authenticity. And when you are cut from your authentic self, you're cut off from others. It's very difficult. It's almost impossible to connect to others from a place of genuine authenticity when we don't feel good enough. The ego is going to say, nope, can't go there. And we're going to employ an ego defense mechanism below the veil of consciousness, because the shame is in there, and our mind, or our ego, hasn't learned to walk it back. Well, ego's not going to walk it back until higher self freaking shows up. Now, if higher self shows up, right? If higher self shows up and I anchor to higher self, then I can maneuver the ego. I can have gentle conversations with ego, because a higher authority has showed up mentally and psychologically and emotionally and spiritually. Oh, okay, I'm anchoring to this higher self, this sense of worthiness, versus allowing my ego to run the ship. Ego runs the ship until enough higher awareness comes in to the point where your mind has separated a little bit, and in that space it's like, wow, I'm not my wounds, I'm the observer of my wounds. Correct. I'm not my body. Nope. I'm not my hair. Nope. I'm not my face. Nope. I'm not the money in the bank. Nope. I'm not what my mother thinks I am. Nope. I'm not my gender. Nope. I'm not my sexuality. Nope. None of those things freaking matter. None of them, because they're not what you are. They're transient. And so ego is grasping for everything that is outside of it, because ego doesn't understand that there's a higher self. So you're going to grasp external validation. You're going to grasp things that are outside of you because ego doesn't know. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's why higher consciousness and the inner voyage, it's for a few that ever really make that voyage. Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey. But every great philosopher, from Rumi to Plato to Marcus Aurelius to Christ to Krishna to Muhammad to Abraham, they're all saying the same thing. Like, the journey is within. So in a, yes, the I am that I am, in a world that that celebrates fakeness, in a world like Instagram that and TikTok that celebrates complete fakeness, right? Fakeness. We've got to be really careful that our ego doesn't go down a rabbit hole of fakeness, because the only way to really be free is to dig deep and anchor to the I am that I am. I am, for me, my process is, wait a minute, I only thought that I wasn't good enough because I was treated like I wasn't, but I always was. Like that very pragmatic, like, I call it an anchoring thought. It was like, wait a minute, it was new data that sunk into my subconscious mind. Like, you grew up feeling like you were never enough, but you always were. Right. So what's the real problem? The belief. Right. And where's the suffering come from? Not the event, but the resistance to feeling not good enough. And codependency is a manifestation of resistance, because in codependency, I'm resisting not feeling good enough. And I'm trying to feel good enough in external things, which is egoic, which is transient, which is always going to leave you feeling empty. So it's when you go within, it's when you seek the beloved within that Rumi talks about. It is when you understand that you are seeking you. You are seeking your own light. You are seeking your own light. And codependency is you seeking a sense of self outside of you. It's you staying in this mode of self-abandonment and self-abandonment and self-abandonment. But when you stop seeking approval on the outside and you look within, you connect mind, body, and soul, vibrationally and spiritually, to your inner self. That becomes your new anchor. As ego starts to fall asleep a little bit and it's less reactive, higher self moves in. And in this new state of consciousness, we're operating from the prefrontal lobe and neocortex in the 12-week breakthrough coaching program, 8-week masterclass in Soul School. Now that we've got you in learning mode, that's where the space between your thoughts expands. That's where you're learning new skills. That's where you're having groundbreaking mind shifts day in and day out, over and over and over and over. We're rewiring the subconscious mind. And so this is the true path to liberation, and it happens within. So I encourage you to continue to seek. I encourage you to understand. I encourage you to follow the path of self-knowledge. I encourage you to understand that everything dovetails. There's no such thing as separation. This is a neurological journey. This is a spiritual journey. This is a psychological journey. This is a physiological journey, because trauma triggers chemicals And so it is a chemical journey as well. So it is a consciousness journey because the subconscious mind is in control. And our aim is then to elevate our consciousness around what is happening in the subconscious mind. Carl Jung said, until you make that which is subconscious conscious, it will dictate your life and you'll call it fate. So even psychology and philosophy, it all blends. There is no such thing as separation. Spirituality talks about the singular eye. When you see through the singular eye, your body becomes light. What it means is your body becomes illumined. When you understand that you are the light, you never had to seek a narcissist's approval. You had to untie the knots of the subconscious mind caused by a narcissistic parent. You have to untie the knots and the enmeshment of cognitive dissonance caused by a psychologically abusive sibling or partner or whatever. Yeah, you have to do that. But the reality is that you can do all of that when you align with truth, and you are enough. You are absolutely enough. And so I hope that this has inspired you. I want to remind everybody that I will be having a 3-day live challenge inside my it is a private support group on Facebook. You have to actually request to join. So I'd love for you to participate in June for that. Also, we're going to have the relaunching of the 12-week breakthrough coaching program. And that's going to take place on July 13th. If you would like more to know more about this program, go to www.lisaramon.com and you click in the header bar on online courses and you'll find the 12-week breakthrough coaching program. It is being offered now at $500 off the regular price. You are going to get access to me, access to my life coaches, access to me every day on Facebook. In our private community, you're going to get access to me during 90-minute live streams. And we're also going to have live Zoom calls. So what you want to understand is that we start you off with a 12-week. You don't have to know anything about recovery. We'll teach you everything. It is a trauma-informed, groundbreaking brain retraining program. And if you remember that repetition and consistency is why you got stuck in pain, and we're going to use repetition and consistency to get you unstuck. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. So I hope to see many of you there. And let me see. Let's see. Yeah. So I hope to see many of you there. And thank you for being here. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. You really help me when you do that. Like and share this information with those that you believe need it. Thank you again. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Oops. I'll go this way. Bye, everybody.